The story begins with a young man who suddenly opens his eyes and discovers that he is sitting in a high school classroom. The main character's name is Fang Ping. He has read many novels about reincarnation, so he quickly accepts the fact that he has been reincarnated. However, unlike his previous life, this world still has the university entrance exam, but it also has something called martial artists. Fang Ping rushes to an internet cafe to search for information about martial artists. After searching, Fang Ping is extremely astonished. In this world, no matter what major task you want to undertake, there is one prerequisite: being a martial artist. Martial artists are divided into 9 ranks. Not only do they hold extremely high social status and power, but only martial artists can open companies. Only martial artists of rank 4 can become provincial governors, and to open a multinational company, one must reach rank 7. Therefore, the martial artist exam has become the only path for countless people to change their lives. Fang Ping is determined to pass the martial arts university entrance exam, but the exam is not as simple as it seems. The registration fee alone is 10,000, which makes many people hesitate. Fang Ping suddenly thinks about whether, after crossing over, he might be a rich second generation. But after returning home, the reality is that he is just a poor child. Without a doubt, Fang Ping has a lively younger sister named Fang Wan, who takes care of Fang Ping and his sister. His mother, Liu Qian, only works in the mornings and has a monthly income of only 80. His father, Fang Mianyang, is just an ordinary worker in a ceramics factory, earning only 3.00 a month. In front of the Huangjing family, they are at the lowest level of society. Fang Ping, for a moment, doesn't know how to speak. After much internal struggle to change his fate, Fang Ping grits his teeth and speaks. When he says he wants to take the martial arts exam, the whole family is very surprised, but his father doesn't hesitate and takes out a bank card, which has 10,000 yuan prepared in it. In front of his son's dream, the father chooses to support him. Fang Ping looks at the bank card in his hand, both shocked and moved, making a firm decision that this reincarnation will be different, and he will make his family's life better. The next day, Fang Ping goes to the bank to withdraw money. As soon as Fang Ping touches the money, an interface appears in front of him, and a system voice rings out, "Condition met, system successfully connected." Isn't this the standard of cheating software? It's unbelievable, the joy of the wealthy. You can't even imagine it. At this moment, Fang Ping is studying his system. After withdrawing 10,000 from the bank, his asset value becomes 10,000. Fang Ping investigates and discovers that if the money doesn't belong to him, even if he touches it, it won't be recorded. Small amounts won't be recorded either. What's bothering Fang Ping now are the 2 values, blood and spirit. How can these values be increased? Fang Ping begins experimenting with various methods, doing yoga, bowing to Buddha, transforming into Ultraman. But after a series of actions, the 2 values still don't change. Fang Ping angrily says, "If I can't increase my blood and spirit, I'll make you go serve the box lunch." Just as he speaks, the asset value rapidly changes, and Fang Ping's whole body starts emitting a strong red energy. A ding sound is heard, and the asset value drops to 0, but the blood value increases to 1.1. Fang Ping immediately feels the change in his body. His heart rate starts to increase, his veins are cleared, and his whole body feels more comfortable than ever. But suddenly, he realizes something and quickly turns to look at the table. The 10,000 is still on the table. At this moment, he breathes a sigh of relief. It turns out that using asset value doesn't affect the money. In fact, the next day, Fang Ping goes to school to register for 5 subjects. His classmates are very surprised and ask him how much blood he has. Fang Ping doesn't know whether 1.1 is high or low, so he doesn't answer. At this moment, a classmate next to him says that he has 10 cal. Fang Ping is astonished. He only has 1.1, and the gap is too large. Seeing that he doesn't answer, Oji Ho, a classmate, invites him to his house after school to test, as he has a small blood measuring device worth 100,000 yuan. Fang Ping feels very confused. Wasn't the most expensive heart rate monitor in his previous life only a few yuan? After school, Fang Ping goes to Oji Ho's house and sits on the chair to test. Oji Ho gapes at the screen, staring at it for a while before he can't believe it and says, Fang Ping's blood value is 113 cal. He had just spent 10,000, but in just one night, he became the second highest in the class in terms of blood value. It turns out that the way the system counts is different from reality. The 1.1 blood value displayed by the system actually corresponds to 113 cal. In reality, the system just omits the 3 of 1.13. Fang Ping is very happy when he returns home. In front of his sister, he boasts a lot, saying that with 113 cal, he is second in the class. Doesn't this mean he will definitely pass the martial artist exam? His parents are very happy when they hear this. They know that to become a martial artist, one not only needs to train the body, but also needs to take supplements. Therefore, they grit their teeth and take out 20,000 yuan, which they had painstakingly saved. Liu Qiang calls Fang Ping into the room. Fang Miangyang, with a proud expression, hands 20,000 yuan to his son. Fang Ping is both moved and surprised. At this moment, the system's asset value changes from 0 to 20,000. Fang Ping understands very clearly that this 20,000 wasn't easy to earn, so he must use it cautiously. If used to buy supplements, he doesn't know how effective it will be, while the system seems more reliable. Therefore, Fang Ping decides to use 10,000 of the asset value to increase his spirit by 0.1. This effect is different from the blood value. It's more like a young girl stroking her head, increasing her clarity, focus, understanding, and memory. Fang Ping becomes so excited that he stays up all night doing homework, and the next day, when he goes to school, his eyes can barely stay open. He draws his sword directly and uses a lock neck technique. The news of Fang Ping's blood value of 113 cal spreads throughout the school after Oji Ho, with his big mouth, spreads it. While the students are gossiping, the class teacher hands Fang Ping a stack of theoretical materials about the martial arts exam and assigns an important task to those who are taking the martial arts exam. He said that he had persuaded the homeroom teacher several times before finally securing the opportunity for them to pick up Wang Jinyang, a freshman from Nanyang University. Wang Jinyang was someone with many opportunities to learn, and given his talent, diligence, and skills, he would surely be welcomed. A group of people went to pick up their senior, Wang Jinyang, who was given a warm welcome. There was an even more important reason for the excitement. He had become a martial artist since his first year. However, Fang Ping had no idea who Wang Jinyang was, and his ignorance sparked waves of anger. A passionate female student stepped forward to educate him. In reality, Wang Jinyang's family wasn't wealthy, but he had never given up on the martial arts exam. He persevered in his studies and eventually passed the martial arts entrance exam with the highest score, entering Nanyang University as the top student. He was also the first in his class to gain admission to the Nanyang Martial Arts University. After entering Martial Arts University, Wang Jinyang never slackened, always maintaining a strict physical training regimen. As a result, he became a martial artist in his first year. This time, Wang Jinyang returned to his old school to give a lecture. Banners were displayed inside and outside the car, creating a spectacle that made Wang Jinyang feel embarrassed. On the way, he took the opportunity to share some tips about the martial arts exam with the younger students. The martial arts exam is divided into 5 sections, with the most difficult being the physical fitness test and the survey. To pass the martial arts exam with 110 cal of vital energy is still very difficult. However, if one can control their emotions, the results will be very different. Joy, sadness, anger, and pain can all stir up the vital energy. Anger, in particular, is simple, crude, and effective. If one cannot control it, just imagining being humiliated will work well. Once the physical fitness test is passed, the survey becomes a little easier. It mainly evaluates explosive strength, endurance, and flexibility. But if you can't even kill a chicken, you're of no use. Don't even think about fighting people, because killing someone is much harder than killing a chicken. Fang Ping was stunned upon hearing this. Why were the words "kill someone" so casually spoken by Wang Jinyang? Fang Ping returned home and thought it over, concluding there was only one possibility. Wang Jinyang had actually killed someone. However, he didn't have much time to think, because according to Wang Jinyang, his vital energy of 113 cal was still insufficient. So, Fang Ping spent 10,000 in asset value to increase his vital energy by 0.1. But this time, the reaction was completely different from last time. Fang Ping suddenly felt his heart as if it were about to explode. His whole body was in excruciating pain, with veins popping out, and even breathing became difficult. Had he overdone it? He shouldn't rush to increase his attributes, as it could suddenly result in death. At that moment, Fang Ping collapsed onto the bed, unable to bear the pain. He still didn't understand why the previous increase in vital energy had been so comfortable, but this time it almost killed him. Fortunately, he felt a little better now. He hurriedly put on his school uniform and went to the hotel to pick up Wang Jinyang for school. In his rush, he accidentally bumped into the new tenant on the floor above. But this person was strange, wearing a hat and mask, holding a small knife. Fang Ping didn't think much of it and quickly got on the bus to pick up his senior. Wang Jinyang walked over, and Fang Ping patted him on the back, saying that to become a martial artist, physical fitness was fundamental. Although he didn't know what kind of supplement Fang Ping had taken to raise his vital energy so much, it was not good to carelessly use such a powerful drug. If you're not careful, it could cause even bigger problems. Just taking supplements without physical training is just greedy excess. Fang Ping shyly thanked him. That evening, Fang Ping followed Wang Jinyang's advice and began training his body vigorously. Surprisingly, after increasing his vital energy, he wasn't tired at all despite the intensity of the workout. At this point, he suddenly felt a murderous aura coming from behind. Turning around, it was the new tenant he had met earlier in the day. Fang Ping worriedly entered his house, and from the news, he accidentally saw a level 2 martial artist who had killed his partner after a robbery. According to the investigation, the last location the criminal had been seen was in the outskirts of the city. Seeing the knife on the screen, Fang Ping felt a sense of familiarity. At night, when Fang Ping went to sleep, he suddenly woke up from a terrifying nightmare. Wasn't that the knife of the man from upstairs? Why was this guy acting so strange? There was a killer upstairs, and instead of running away, he had actively knocked on the door, casually entering the killer's house to watch a football match. He even brought 2 cups of soy milk. The killer tightly grasped the soy milk cups, deeply angry. How had he been dragged into this by the kid? Was Fang Ping sent to capture him? After thinking it over, he could only feel helpless, watching Fang Ping continue to chat and laugh in front of him, but still forcing himself to smile. Don't be fooled by this kid's youth, especially if he's from the monitoring department. It's best to be modest. After a while of trying to dismiss Fang Ping unsuccessfully, the killer had to give up. Not knowing when the match had ended, Fang Ping pulled the curtains and was about to help the killer clean up, but was immediately pulled back. How could a killer's room be casually exposed to others? The killer lied, saying he was allergic to UV rays. But Fang Ping insisted that since the living room wasn't cleaned, they should clean the bedroom. The killer once again stopped Fang Ping. Fang Ping smiled, "We're both guys, you know." The killer started trying to dismiss him for the 999th time. Seeing there was no other way, Fang Ping finally prepared to leave. The killer breathed a sigh of relief. But unexpectedly, Fang Ping tripped on a box on the floor, rolling around on the ground. The killer panicked, not because Fang Ping had fallen, but because the weapons in the box had been exposed. He immediately rushed over, kicked Fang Ping away, then drew his knife, ready to silence him. Just as he was about to strike, the killer suddenly felt dizzy. It turned out that Fang Ping had spiked the soy milk with a drug that doubled its effect. Taking advantage of the situation, Fang Ping grabbed a wooden stick and struck the killer on the head. The killer immediately stood up, still formidable as a second-rank martial artist, and threw a punch straight at Fang Ping's face. Fang Ping hurriedly pushed him away. He had worked hard to be reborn. How could he die here? Therefore, he struck with a wooden staff. The killer was too badly injured and collapsed to the ground, unconscious. After tying the killer with rope, Fang Ping immediately went to check the loot. To his surprise, he had collected quite a lot. The killer was furious and cursed Fang Ping. But Fang Ping was not an obedient child. He was tempted by a large bag of loot. The killer realized he could exploit this situation and immediately proposed a deal to Fangping. If Fangping let him go, the cash and the drugs would belong to him. The cash and drugs, worth 5.24 million on the market, shocked Fangping. A few vials of medicine, worth millions, had fallen from the sky. The killer convinced Fangping to make the deal, claiming there was no loss, as the bag contained valuable medicinal pills like bone rejuvenation pill and internal organs pill. Highly valuable and rare items that ordinary people couldn't acquire. Even a martial artist's body was ultimately still that of an ordinary person, and without cultivating hard bones, they couldn't protect their fragile internal organs. Once their blood energy exceeded the limit, their body would certainly explode. The killer argued that instead of handing him over to the police, Fangping should let him go and gain these valuable items. If Fangping tried to kill him and take everything, the killer had already contacted a higher power. If they couldn't reach him soon, they would surely come after Fangping for revenge, which would be far worse. Fangping fell into deep thought. While he was reluctant to let go of such a large bag of treasures, he knew he absolutely couldn't release the killer. If he did, he would surely die on the spot. At this moment, he came up with a win-win solution. Seek Wang Jinyang's help. Resources were extremely valuable to martial artists, and Wang Jinyang would likely think the same way. If Wang Jinyang wanted to monopolize them, Fangping would be left with no way out. If he delayed any longer, the anesthetic would wear off, and the killer would certainly kill him to cover his tracks. Betting on Wang Jinyang was a better option. At least he had a chance of getting out alive, rather than lingering and risking everything. Finally, Fangping made a decision. He swung the staff again and struck the killer. The young man saw the system displaying his asset value as 2.40 million and was overjoyed. With that, passing the martial arts exam was no longer a problem. This young man's name was Wang Jinyang, the top scorer in Yangsong City's martial arts university exam. As a first-year student, he had already become a martial artist. He received the mission to capture the killer, who was none other than the one Fangping had caught. At that moment, Wang Jinyang was out on a nighttime mission when his phone rang, and it was Fangping calling. He answered the phone, and Fangping told him he had caught the killer. Wang Jinyang was half skeptical. When meeting the killer, even he had to be very cautious, let alone Fangping, who wasn't even a martial artist yet. Despite thinking this way, Wang Jinyang quickly made his way over. To his surprise, everything was true. This junior was incredibly strong and had captured the killer on his own. Fangping didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. He wanted to split the loot he had just collected. Wang Jinyang had planned to probe a little, but Fangping pulled him straight into the deal and handed over the right to split the loot to Wang Jinyang. Wang Jinyang was stunned. His junior was quite clever. He didn't hesitate and decisively handed over 2 second-tier kidney tonics and second-tier skincare pills, telling Fangping not to use them yet but to trade them for first-tier ones and an additional 10,000 in cash. Then, Wang Jinyang searched the killer's body, finding a red pill, expensive and just what he needed to break through his current realm. He took it without hesitation, leaving the rest to Fangping. He would deal with the killer on his own. Fangping didn't need to worry anymore. After splitting the loot, the system's asset value immediately surged to over 2.4 million. However, compared to the market value of 3.5 million, there was still a significant difference. The system didn't cheat anyone. Faced with this situation, Fangping was very satisfied. He suddenly remembered about giving a statement. He turned around, looking at him with great surprise. Wang Jinyang, with a fierce look in his eyes, said that the criminal had resisted arrest and was shot dead on the spot. Do you believe it? This high school student is worth 1 million. Currently, he was preparing to buy his first house after his asset value reached over 3.4 million. The system interface that had been there before had shattered, and a newer, more scientific and modern interface appeared before his eyes. However, he didn't expect the system to be this practical. When Fangping had no money, the system only showed a single figure of 10, which wasn't accurate enough. Now, with his asset value exceeding 3.4 million, not only had the interface been upgraded, but he could also use his asset value to exchange for blood energy points. It was now more detailed and operable. Indeed, in this day and age, if you don't have money, you can't do anything. At this moment, Wang Jinyang sent a message to Fangping, saying he had sent some useful things. Fangping was very curious. While in deep thought, his little sister's private wake-up service arrived. Fangping's waist was suddenly jumped on by his adorable little sister, Fangwan. But even though they were siblings, there still had to be some reciprocity. So, he pinched her soft cheek. Fangwan handed him a package, saying it was from Wang Jinyang. Fangwan couldn't believe her brother knew such a famous person from the city. She quickly pulled Fangping away to get Wang Jinyang's autograph. Fangwan shared her plan to get rich. In this city, of the 5 female students, at least 3 liked Wang Jinyang. The school had 3,000 female students and an additional 500 male fans. If she sold an autograph for 1 yuan, she would collect 35,000 yuan, which rounded up would be almost $1 million, right? But when she came to her senses, she realized her brother had disappeared, happily enjoying himself alone. Fangping was walking down the street, opening the package to check. It turned out that Wang Jinyang had sent him 3 training manuals. Previously, he had studied the materials and learned that to become a martial artist, 2 conditions had to be met. First, the blood energy must reach at least 150 cal. Second, the bones must be trained, not just by taking medicine, but through professional training methods. He was worried about where to find such methods, but unexpectedly, they were sent directly to him. However, the intensity of the training was increasing, and the small yard in front of his house was no longer enough. He needed a place that was both spacious and quiet. So Fangping decided to look for a house. Sure enough, when you have money, nothing is a problem. The broker, with a squinted eye, immediately made assumptions and treated him dismissively, thinking that a high school student wouldn't be able to afford a house. But this attitude changed immediately when Fangping pulled out his bank card and asked if he could get a discount for paying in full in cash. The broker's attitude became enthusiastic. There was indeed a discount of 5%, and on top of that, all management and maintenance fees were waived. The deposit could be paid immediately, and Fangping could even get a partial rent exemption. The house was already furnished, so he could move in right away. All the paperwork was handled by the broker, and Fangping didn't have to worry about a thing. The issue of his training location was solved, but how to explain this to his family was still a tricky problem. As a result, Fangping decided not to tell them. He then went shopping for some supplies and gym equipment. On the way, he saw news about martial arts masters exchanging techniques, which excited him. He set a goal for himself. He was determined to become a martial arts master. His bank card had just been swiped, and it was already taking what others coveted. Indeed, spending money made him feel great, spend continuously, and the joy would keep coming. With the location and facilities settled, Fangping immediately began his physical training. The human body is made of bones, flesh, meridians, and internal organs. Martial artists must integrate all aspects of their bodies. Therefore, combining training methods with specialization would give the best results. Wang Jinyang had high expectations for Fangping and directly called to offer guidance. Fangping was practicing the first stage of his training, focusing on upper and lower body coordination, capable of both striking and evading. Fangping listened carefully, understanding that he must focus on his central area, but Wang Jinyang reminded him that focusing on the central area carried risks. If injured, there was a chance of crippling his legs and being unable to walk normally. However, Fangping didn't overthink it. He only considered that if he couldn't win in a fight, at least he could run away. This understanding was quite impressive. At this point, Wang Jinyang once again reminded Fangping that although training methods and techniques could improve his blood energy limits, his actual blood energy would decrease as a result, preparing for the upcoming martial arts exam. Therefore, training must be done in moderation. After the call ended, Fangping eagerly began his training. As Wang Jinyang had said, his blood energy and mental state both decreased, but with money, he could do whatever he liked. Just pour money into it, and as long as his body could handle it, his training would progress quickly. Only someone with a system could do this. Those with a golden touch were different from ordinary people in this way. What system? The system could restore blood energy and mental state, even raising their limits. Fangping was extremely excited. If that was the case, the martial arts exam would be a breeze. After a month of intense training, the day of the decisive exam finally arrived. Fang Ping confidently walked into the exam room. The first part of the exam was a physical checkup at the health center. Fang Ping was chatting with his classmates when suddenly, a middle-aged man called him over. It was the deputy director of the city's education bureau, Tan Zhenping. Why was such an important person from Yangsong City looking for him? He called Fang Ping to a corner and said, "If you don't wake up early, you won't get the porridge." Fang Ping asked directly what the issue was. Tan Zhenping didn't beat around the bush. He explained that the number of candidates meeting the standard in the exam was an important evaluation criterion for the Education Bureau, and this year's situation wasn't looking great. Wang Jinyang had previously mentioned Fang Ping to him, and since Fang Ping was recommended by Wang Jinyang, he must be extraordinary. Tan Zhenping hoped that Fang Ping would reveal his blood energy before the exam to intimidate students from other schools, affecting their confidence and performance. It was clear that the old fox wanted to use Fang Ping to apply pressure on the other schools. Fang Ping naturally didn't want to do that. Revealing his blood energy before the exam would affect his physical test afterward. Tan Zhenping seemed to have anticipated that Fang Ping wouldn't easily agree. He said that later, he would compensate Fang Ping with a blood energy pill worth 900,000. Since there was a benefit, Fang Ping happily agreed. Just then, a conflict broke out between the Yangsong School's candidates and those from other schools. Fang Ping saw an opportunity and stepped forward, releasing his blood energy to dominate. All the other candidates immediately knelt on the ground. Tan Zhenping, standing next to him, was shocked. This kid's blood energy was almost on par with that of a martial artist. Finally, after 10 years, Yang Som had a new potential martial artist. Fang Ping walked into the health center, and the other candidates were whispering, discussing who had just revealed such overwhelming blood energy. The pressure was too much. Just as Fang Ping was feeling pleased with himself, he was suddenly grabbed and pulled into a nearby dark room. It was Tan Zhenping. That was an excellent hiding technique, just like in those romance novels, Tan Zhenping said. He then took out a top-grade blood energy pill and insisted Fang Ping take it to become a potential martial artist. Fang Ping refused firmly because the effects of the top-grade pill were too strong. If someone who wasn't a martial artist took it, not only would it harm their foundation, but it could also be fatal. Seeing that Fang Ping wouldn't agree, Tan Zhenping said this was an order from the director of the Education Bureau, Kim Guk Mayom, and a request from a third-tier martial artist. This was a threat. Fang Ping firmly replied, "Sorry, my brother is also a third-tier martial artist." Tan Zhenping was taken aback, realizing his threat had failed. He quickly shifted to a softer approach, saying that he was also being forced to do this, and that if Fang Ping agreed, they could negotiate the terms. It seemed like he could still make a profit. Fang Ping spoke up, 2 top-grade blood energy pills, plus 2 million in cash. Tan Zhenping quickly agreed. "No problem, I'll speak to Director Kim." Before leaving, Fang Ping said, "Tan Zhenping can tell Kim Guk Mayom that I want 3 first-grade blood essence pills. He can keep 1 for himself, just give me 2. Tan Zhenping was utterly stunned. This kid, still thinking about bribing me? Is this really a high school student? The person Wang Jinyang had his eye on was truly no simple figure. In the examination room, a long row of testing booths was set up. Many candidates had already finished their tests, but no one had reached the 120 kcal blood essence threshold. It was Fang Ping's turn. Kim Guk Mayong hurriedly asked for the monitoring screen of Fang Ping to be opened. In fact, Fang Ping didn't need to take any blood essence pill, but he pretended to take one. He pulled out a regular blood essence pill and swallowed it. The medicine quickly entered his body, and blood essence power surged into him. Fang Ping threw his head back and let out a roar as the blood essence power exploded. The test data quickly surged, and a small beep rang out unexpectedly. He had reached the 149 kl limit for potential martial artists. Fang Ping passed the exam with a smug look, but he didn't realize that the world of martial artists was fraught with danger. After the test, all the candidates gathered in a room to wait for the judges to announce the results. This year, the passing score had been raised to 115 kal, and many students groaned. Fang Ping remained calm. When the judges announced the list of successful candidates, Fang Ping, with a blood essence score of 149 kale, was ranked first in Yangsang. Fang Ping was happy to hear the result, but when he saw the students who didn't meet the standard, he couldn't help but think that this martial arts exam was no test for ordinary people. Financial issues were very important. He approached a girl who had failed and encouraged her, even inviting a group of friends to go for a nice meal. On the way home, they encountered a man with strange symbols drawn on his face. The man approached and began criticizing martial artists. It turned out he was from a cult. The group ignored him and quickly left, but he followed them relentlessly. Seeing this, Fang Ping had to release his blood essence pressure to stop the man and then left with his group. The next day, Fang Ping participated in a survey and a professional test. After the test, the students were all cheerful, unaware that another disaster was about to strike after the exam pressure. At the school gate, several men holding iron rods suddenly pushed open the car doors and rushed toward the students who had just exited the school. A loud explosion was heard, and one student fell to the ground. The men, like wolves among sheep, began beating wildly. The students scattered in a panic. At this moment, Fang Ping was still puzzled about what was happening when a woman suddenly appeared behind him. She punched him, and he barely managed to raise both hands to block the blow. The power was so strong, it seemed she had trained her bones and limbs. Fang Ping looked at the strange symbols on the woman's face and realized that she was from the same cult as the man from the day before. Fang Ping sidestepped and kicked her, but she blocked it lightly and flexibly. Fang Ping thought, "It hurts. This is the enemy hurting me without trying to." Before Fang Ping could react, the woman suddenly grabbed his collar and threw him to the ground. Fang Ping spat out a mouthful of blood. The woman raised her fist, preparing to land a fatal blow. Fang Ping, shocked, kicked her ankle, causing her to lose her balance and miss the punch. The punch even cracked the ground beneath them. The woman smiled wickedly and threw another punch. Fang Ping wondered, "Am I going to die here?" Just when it seemed hopeless, the woman was suddenly knocked away like a firecracker, crashing into a nearby railing. Blood flowed from the man's fist as he stood over the fallen woman, who had died instantly from the punch. Fang Ping was stunned. The man was incredibly powerful. As the blood dripped, Fang Ping realized that he had almost been killed before even becoming a martial artist. The man who had saved him turned out to be the deputy director of the city's investigation department, a ruthless character. At that moment, Tan Zhenping also arrived, looking worried. He checked to see if Fang Ping was hurt. After confirming Fang Ping was fine, Tan Zhenping spoke with an old man about the incident. It turned out that a self-styled cult was behind it. Not long after, a young man from the investigation department came to report to the old man. The members of the cult involved in the incident had been arrested, but many students were injured, and many might not make it into the martial arts university. As for Fang Ping, who had experienced this event, he finally realized that he was still too weak. In a world where the strong were revered, only by becoming stronger could he survive. But Tan Zhenping told Fang Ping that many martial masters nowadays didn't train martial arts techniques. They only honed their bones and nourished their blood essence because it wasn't necessary. Even in situations like this, the investigation department would handle it. There were many people like him who became martial artists and then chose to become public servants. Fang Ping was disappointed. It seemed that martial artists were mainly decorative weapons. Tan Zhenping suggested taking Fang Ping home to personally visit his parents. At Fang Ping's house, Tan Zhenping said he would arrange for Fang Ping's father to work as a security guard at the education department with a monthly salary of 5,000, plus social and medical insurance. This job was much better than working at a ceramics factory. After saying this, Tan Zhenping left. Fang Ping took the opportunity to mention that the education department would also reward him with a house. He finally found a reasonable excuse. The next day, Fang Ping took his parents and little sister to the house he had purchased earlier. The Fang family was amazed that, even without becoming martial artists, they were already enjoying such benefits. Fang Ping called it a scholarship and asked his family not to share this treatment with others. His family believed the excuse he made up happily. After watching the news with his family and seeing martial artists helping the public, Fang Ping realized that martial artists weren't as useless as he had thought. At that moment, Wang Jinyang suddenly called. Fang Ping said that his blood essence had reached 150 kl, and he had completed his first bone training. He wanted Wang Jinyang to teach him martial arts techniques. Wang Jinyang replied that 150 kl was the standard for a normal person to become a martial artist, but not to rush to breakthrough. The higher the blood essence, the better it would be for the future. He advised Fang Ping to complete his second bone training first, as there was a hidden hack and even a master who could guide him. This young man truly had boundless potential. Wang Jinyang truly made a move against Fang Ping. What exactly happened recently? Wang Jinyang called Fang Ping and asked if the bone refining process had slowed down. Indeed, it had, because Fang Ping's physical and blood essence levels had reached the limit of a martial artist's breakthrough. Naturally, the training speed would decrease. Wang Jinyang advised Fang Ping to soak in a body-strengthening solution to speed up the process, but it wasn't available in Yangsang. He had swapped from another school and would send a few bottles to Fang Ping. The cost of 3 bottles was 50,000, extremely expensive. Martial artists truly used money to push forward their progress. He had to train hard. Money couldn't be wasted. With the body-strengthening solution, after a month of diligent practice, Fang Ping's blood essence reached 170 kal. The martial arts exam results finally came in, and the Fang Ping family nervously watched the computer screen. Fang Ping's major score was 85, the exam score was 98, and his blood essence was 149 kal. With this score, both major martial arts universities would fight to recruit him. At this moment, Wang Jinyang sent a message, saying he had arrived in Yangsang and wanted to meet Fang Ping. When the big brother himself took the initiative to meet, what would happen? Fang Ping found Wang Jinyang playing basketball with a little girl. He couldn't help but tease, seeing the girl shyly hide behind Wang Jinyang. He thought his little sister Fang Wan was much cuter. After Wang Jinyang spoke a few words, the girl obediently left. Suddenly, Wang Jinyang punched Fang Ping. "What do you think you're doing?" he said. "All right, it seems you've completed the second bone refining. Let's fight a bit." Before Fang Ping could refuse, Wang Jinyang punched him, sending him flying. "With your body, you want to learn combat skills?" He then jumped up and kicked. Fang Ping quickly retreated, thankfully dodging. Wang Jinyang chuckled lightly, impressed by Fang Ping's quick reflexes. Fang Ping smiled, replying, "Not bad, it's all thanks to your guidance." Wang Jinyang attacked again, but midway he spoke. "The first time we met, I thought you were mediocre, but 2 months later, you've completed your second bone refining. Your talent is truly impressive." Fang Ping felt shy at the praise. Wang Jinyang hoped Fang Ping would join Nanyang Martial Arts University. So he came here to recruit him. Faced with the enticing conditions of Wang Jinyang and the massive resources of the 2 major martial arts universities, which one would Fang Ping choose? Recently, Wang Jinyang suggested that Fang Ping join Nanyang Martial Arts University. He mentioned he was the president of the university's martial arts club and could help Fang Ping secure resources for free before reaching third-tier martial artist status. Fang Ping was shocked. Before reaching third-tier martial artist, just the refining pills and body-strengthening solutions would cost over 10 million. Truly generous. Wang Jinyang didn't force Fang Ping, saying with his abilities, he could easily enter either of the 2 top martial arts universities. This wasn't the first time Fang Ping had heard about them. Were they really that good? Wang Jinyang explained, "Of course they're great. Every year, the government provides these universities with enormous resources. Many powerful figures and celebrities have graduated from there. They also supply substantial financial backing, so when students break through to first-tier martial artists, they get free bone and blood essence pills. Every year, thousands of new students enroll, and the costs total at least 800 million annually. Truly wealthy." Another point is the number of tasks. Beyond school allowances, most resources have to be earned. Unlike regular universities, where tasks are rare, these 2 martial arts universities are different. One is in Kimdo, the political center, and the other in Mando, the commercial center. Both are big cities with countless tasks and generous rewards. The most important aspect is the faculty. This is something regular martial arts schools can't match. At Namyang, the minimum requirement for teachers is third-tier martial artists. Fourth tier can become advisors, and fifth tier can be school leaders. For the other two universities, teachers must be fourth or fifth tier, and sixth tier can become numerous advisors. From what I know, Sanghai's martial arts school has 4 grandmasters. Fang Ping was shocked. 4 grandmasters, that's incredible. Wang Jinyang told him to think it over before leaving. Fang Ping was torn. Where should he choose to go? Today, Fang Ping received his acceptance letter and prepared to arrive at the university early to get familiar with the environment. His parents and Fang Wan went to the train station to send him off. Amid the reluctant farewells, Fang Ping boarded the train to the martial arts university. So, where did Fang Ping end up choosing? As the train reached the station, Fang Ping couldn't help but sigh. This was truly the commercial center of China. Streets full of martial artists. Nothing like the small city of Gangsong. At this moment, a railway police officer approached, asking Fang Ping to show his ID. Fang Ping handed it over. The officer scanned it with a device, and the screen showed his blood essence at 199 kl, but without martial artist registration, so he couldn't move freely. Fang Ping was confused. But I'm not a martial artist. The officer seemed skeptical. Fang Ping explained, I'm a first-year student at Mando Martial Arts University. A first year with blood essence that high? That's impressive. The officer took Fang Ping to register for a temporary martial artist ID. In big cities like Mando, martial artists were seen as walking weapons, so they imposed these restrictions. Under the officer's guidance, Fang Ping successfully completed his martial artist ID registration at the gates of Mando Martial Arts University. Fang Ping was amazed at the size of the university. This is Mando Martial Arts University? The gate is so grand. A voice behind him suddenly said, it looks so old-fashioned. A young man with blue hair and a long sword approached. Are you a first-year student at Mando Martial Arts University? He asked. I'm a third-year student from the Weapons Academy, said Jin Bongqiang. In the confused expression of Fang Ping, Jin Bongqiang swung a sword toward him. Fang Ping froze, terrified. What's your name, Junior? The man asked again. A second-time Tokat practitioner? You can stand firm already. All right, go ahead, tell me your name. Jin Bongqiang entered the school, and after a quick glance, he realized that Fang Ping was someone who had undergone 2 rounds of Tokat, but was not yet a martial artist. He seemed to have arrived at the correct martial arts university, Mando. As Jin Bongqiang walked through the school, he suddenly recalled the voice of the person he had just encountered. It sounded so familiar, but he couldn't place where he had heard it before. At that moment, he reached into his coat pocket and gripped a few bottles of Tokat elixirs he had just exchanged. This time, he was confident he could complete the bone refining process. Once that was done, he would be sure to crush Fang Ping completely. As for the martial arts club at Namyang University, they could talk all they wanted, but weren't they just Wang Jinyang's faction? Fang Ping, filled with anticipation, stepped into the university. The large gate was impressive, and he wondered what the inside would be like. However, as he followed the new student guide to the student registration office, he was surprised to find a shabby building instead of the grand entrance he had seen. Had he been tricked? Fang Ping walked into the lobby, where a middle-aged woman was reading a book. He handed her his admission letter and identification. As the woman verified his details, she complained about him reporting early, saying it added to her workload. Not only was the building old, but the attitude was bad as well. She swiped his ID card, and then her expression suddenly changed. A second-tier martial artist with 199 kal blood energy. She quickly stood up and smiled at Fang Ping, arranging for him to stay at the university's hotel. The change in attitude was swift. The woman asked if Fang Ping had plans to break through to a higher martial artist rank, offering to immediately arrange for a mentor to assist. Fang Ping was confused since classes hadn't started yet, but she reassured him that in the major universities, the ability determined the treatment. As a second-tier martial artist with refined bones and blood energy at the peak, he was undoubtedly a talent among the new students. If he wanted to break through, the university would provide the necessary support. At this moment, Lee Sum-tak, the hotel's guest services manager at Mando Martial Arts University, ran in, drenched in sweat. "Sorry for keeping you waiting." He smiled and quickly helped Fangping with his luggage before leading him outside. A flash of grandeur appeared, and Fangping couldn't believe that he had such luxury transportation. This treatment was indeed overwhelming. Lee Sung-tak brought Fangping to an extravagant room, which surprisingly had a private gym and an open kitchen. "How is all this free?" Fangping asked in amazement. Lee Sung-tak explained that since Fangping was a second-tier martial artist with the Tokat stage, his room was better than others. With that, Lee Sung-tak left. Fangping felt that he had truly joined the privileged class now. The feeling of being treated like royalty was fantastic, but the money was quickly running out. What should he do now? In the restaurant of the Mando Martial Arts University Hotel, Fangping was deep in thought. He had recently been preparing for the third stage of Tokat, which would cost quite a bit of his assets. As his strength increased, so would his need for resources, which would only grow, not shrink. He couldn't continue like this. He needed a continuous income source. The only way was to start a company. Although the structure of this world was different from the one he had reincarnated into, the general development trends were similar. In the future, the internet would definitely be the main trend, with online shopping and mobile payments being indispensable. All of this required a lot of technology and money, which made it very difficult to implement. Right now, Fangping only had 1.6 million in cash, not enough to open an online shopping company. But a logistics company would be easier to start, with low technology requirements, and a steady income was possible. The only problem was that Fangping was still unfamiliar with Mando, and he needed to focus on his cultivation. He needed someone familiar with the environment here to manage the company. Suddenly, a loud shout was heard. Two customers in the restaurant were intentionally causing a scene, putting their hair in their food and demanding compensation from the restaurant. Fangping was about to stand up and teach them a lesson when Lee Sung-tak, the manager of the hotel department, appeared. With just a few words, he made the troublemakers flee. Fangping praised Lee Sung-tak for his quick action. Lee Sung-tak, noticing Fangping, hurriedly bowed 90 degrees. Fangping commented that even though Lee Sung-tak wasn't a martial artist, his position at the university's hotel must have been earned over many years. Lee Sung-tak responded that it wasn't a long time, just exactly 8 years. The new graduates from the university usually had higher positions than him. Fangping asked if he had considered becoming a martial artist. Lee Sung-tak quickly replied, "Of course, I would love to. Being a martial artist would increase my salary 3 to 4 times." Fangping inquired when that would happen, and Lee Sung-tak sighed, saying it would take at least 5 years, by which time he would be over 30 and his blood energy would have dropped by at least 1 rank. Fangping reassured him, saying, "In 3 years, I can help you become a martial artist, and you won't have to spend a single penny." Lee Sung-tak was shocked, and Fangping confidently added, "So, do you want to join me?" Unbelievably, Wang Jinyang had done it on his own, sweeping through 2 prestigious universities, Mando and Kimdo. A month later, as the sound of bones cracking echoed, Fangping finally completed his 3rd round of Tokat. His blood energy increased by 6 points, and his mental strength grew considerably. The results were impressive, though the cost was high, nearly 2 million in assets for just 1 round. But it was well worth it. The 3rd round of Tokat would be faster than the 2nd, and most importantly, he had accomplished what even Wang Jinyang could not. After wiping the blood off his body, Fangping smirked, thinking, "Tomorrow's the first day of school, and I'll be able to show off in front of my new classmates." The next day, after checking in, the new students began heading to the dorms. The university had divided the new dorms into 4 sections, ranked by the students' entrance scores. The first section was for the best, and Fangping, walking proudly under the envious gazes of his peers, entered the first section. Fangping opened the door to the dormitory and was stunned. It was more like a luxury suite than a student dorm. Although Fangping had enjoyed a month of special privileges at the Mando Martial Arts University Hotel, he couldn't help but marvel at the university's financial power. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Fangping opened it to find Fu Changding from the room across. Fu Changding was handsome, and his scores were even higher than Fangping's. "Are you going to leave me alone?" Fu Changding asked, teasing. Fang Ping politely introduced himself. Fu Changding was taken aback. "Wait, are you from Namyang? You must know Wang Jinyang then." Fang Ping responded, "He's a senior of mine from the 3rd year." Fu Changding immediately became excited. "He's the model for our generation of martial artists. Last year, he wiped out all the first-year students in one go at Mando Martial Arts University." "Wait, what?" Fang Ping was shocked. "A few days ago, he even caused a ruckus in my hometown, Kimdo, and on his first day there, he took down 8 martial arts schools." Fang Ping couldn't believe it. These schools were guarded by mid-level martial artists. After Fu Changding left, Fang Ping was excited. The power of Wang Jinyang was overwhelming. Looks like he would need to train harder. As Fu Changding walked out, his face turned serious. If hearing about Wang Jinyang made your blood boil like that, he must have completed the 2nd stage of Tokat. No, he might even be stronger than that. Have you ever seen a school like this? Fu Changding continued. "We haven't even chosen our majors, and we're already fighting for the first day of school." All new students of Mando Martial Arts University gathered in front of the training building. The noise was deafening, and the host was sweating, but no one was listening. Just then, a tall, blond man appeared and barked, "All of you, quiet down." His voice echoed as a powerful blood pressure swept across the area, overwhelming the students. Many of them fell to their knees, unable to withstand the pressure. Fang Ping and Fu Changding trembled as they realized that the man was Tuangjing, the dean of the Weapon Academy at Mando Martial Arts University. He was a true grandmaster martial artist. Huangjing announced, "I am the one in charge of this entrance exam. The building in front of you is where you will choose your academy today. The first floor represents the Academy of Humanities, focusing on politics and culture. The second floor represents the Academy of Manufacturing, focusing on alchemy, weapons, and martial arts. The third floor represents the Academy of Tactical Direction, focusing on military strategy. The fourth floor represents the Weapon Academy, focusing on real combat." After 5 minutes, all the students entered the building and went to their respective academies. An hour later, the building was sealed off. Many new students began to complain. "This is too simple. Why not just split us up directly?" Wangjing smiled maliciously. "Each floor is limited to 400 people. If you exceed that number, all the students on that floor will lose 30 points. He reminded them, "The basic score for new students is 50 points. 1 point equals 30,000 in cash. 3 points can buy a blood key pill." The students were shocked by this revelation. It was only the first day, and the competition was already this intense. Fang Ping was also amazed. It seemed the entrance exam at Mando Martial Arts University was no simple matter. Just then, Fu Changding called Fang Ping over. "Do you want to team up and do something together?" Fu Changding said that the Weapon Academy had the most resources and the best faculty, so many people would choose the 4th floor. If they teamed up, it wouldn't be difficult to reach the 4th floor. But this didn't mean they would be able to get guidance from the best instructors. Fang Ping was annoyed. "Why?" he asked. Fu Changding explained, "All the instructors of Mando Martial Arts University will observe the students' choices. They will select the ones they like. So we need to stand out in this process and catch the attention of the instructors." Fang Ping thought about this. Wang Jinyang had also said that choosing a good advisor was very important. So if they could attract the attention of all the advisors, wouldn't they be able to pick whichever one they wanted? This made Fang Ping more certain that teaming up was the right choice. Just then, Huangjing spoke again. "The president of Mando Martial Arts University once said that real martial artists have to fight for what they want. Now, let's start enjoying your first lesson as martial artists." The hall fell silent. Suddenly, all the new students rushed into the building. A mentor remarked, "The physical condition of the new students this year is decent." Huangjing snorted, "You kids don't understand anything. You're all just full of blood energy." One mentor sighed, "Everyone goes through this phase." Huangjing's face darkened as he said harshly, "The underground situation is becoming more dangerous. A group of elite warriors has fallen in battle at the front lines. Students with this level of ability are simply not enough." The mentors dared not speak further. After the students rushed to the 4th floor, suddenly, a student was kicked and slammed into the wall. So, a first-tier martial artist is this strong and still can't get up? He complained. Why is the fourth floor still not full? Why can't we go up? A person on the fourth floor laughed disdainfully. If you don't have at least 140 cal of blood energy, you're not qualified to be here. The student who was kicked was powerless, his blood energy far below theirs. Just then, Fang Ping shot up the stairs. Before the person blocking the path could react, Fang Ping kicked him in the face, knocking him unconscious. The others stared in astonishment. This was an impressive move. Fang Ping stood tall, his expression smug. Before I came to Manhwa, everyone told me this school gathered a lot of geniuses. So, I gave up the huge benefits at Nanyang University and chose Manhwa. But I didn't expect that the students here were so weak. Manhwa doesn't even deserve its top-tier reputation. All the advisors were extremely stunned. This kid was so arrogant. Wang Jinyang angrily said, "All freshmen, listen up. If you defeat this arrogant brat, you will get 50 points." Immediately, all the freshmen's eyes lit up as they moved towards Fang Ping. This was different from what I imagined. I just wanted to attract the attention of the advisors at first, but Fu Changding was now in a panic. Fang Ping smiled strangely. "So, do you want to fight them, or fight me along with them?" Fu Changding, being the good teammate, responded, "What's the point of fighting one person when we can all fight together? Or if two people fight a group, we won't lose face." Fang Ping laughed, then loudly said, "If defeating me earns you points, what if I defeat them?" There was a moment of silence. Then Wang Jing's voice came through the loudspeaker. "Non-martial artists earn 1 point. Martial artists earn 5 points. Fang Ping clapped his hands. Principal Wang is really stingy, but it's better than nothing. The show was about to begin. Inside the observation room, the crowd was discussing Fang Ping and Fu Changding. Some people even recognized that he had completed the Tokat third stage 3 times and guessed that his connection to Wang Jinyang was probably not ordinary. At that moment, a loud bang was heard as Fang Ping kicked a freshman, sending him flying before he could relax. A punch suddenly came from Fang Ping's side, but he dodged, grabbing his opponent's arm with his right hand and delivering a blood-condensing punch with his left. The freshman was immediately sent flying several meters, but Fang Ping was also panting heavily. The drain on his blood energy after a single fight had been too great. Just then, someone suddenly rushed towards Fang Ping, and in the blink of an eye, was in front of him. Fang Ping was startled. The speed was fast. It turned out to be the leader among the freshmen, a martial artist who had reached the second stage of Tokat. Fang Ping took a punch to the chin, but he didn't fall down. His training in maintaining his stance had paid off. At that moment, a girl with purple hair suddenly jumped up, holding a long sword and saying, 50 points, I'll take them. Fang Ping's stamina had already been exhausted, and he quickly focused his mind, using 100,000 asset points to restore 100 points of blood energy in an instant. He narrowly avoided Yang Soman's sword strike. Luckily, the system was there, but those asset points still needed to be saved. Yang Soman was shocked. How did this guy's blood energy recover so suddenly? Before she could react, Fang Ping kicked her in the face, sending her flying backward and crashing into the students behind her. What, no mercy? Kicked her in the face. Seeing her friend being hit, Jiao Xui also charged at Fang Ping. She came from behind him and threw a punch. Fang Ping dodged and countered with a punch of his own. Jiao Xui fell hard to the floor. The crowd was in an uproar. This guy is using hacks. He's been fighting for so long, but his blood energy hasn't decreased. That's right, but too bad there's no reward. Fang Ping shouted toward Fu Changding, telling him not to fight martial artists in a one-on-one battle, as it would waste too much blood energy. There are plenty of non-martial artists. If you fight one, you get 1 point. Fu Changding responded, Of course I know, but these people have too much blood energy, and I can't recover in time. While speaking, Fu Changding was punched. It was a disaster for him. Countless people fell around Fang Ping, and Fu Changding was running around the field. A martial artist who had reached the second stage of Tokat rushed toward Fang Ping, and Fang Ping retaliated. Let's see if I can block this one. The air suddenly became still. Chen Yuanxi's face changed. Fang Ping quickly pulled his hand back. Chen Yuanxi, embarrassed, kicked at him. Fang Ping grabbed a male student nearby. "This has nothing to do with me." Fang Ping smiled awkwardly. "A punch can't tell the difference." At that moment, Jono suddenly shouted, "Yang Somen, Jiao Xuime, each lead a team and take turns attacking." Fang Ping, Chen Yonxi, and Dang Songjian lead a team to control Fu Changding. Fu Changding's eyes widened. "No way. I just took blood energy medicine and still haven't recovered." "Fang Ping, help me." Fang Ping replied, "I'm too busy. Take care of yourself." Fu Changding, stunned, fell to his knees. "Please don't hit my face." Some students from other floors ran over, excited to watch the intense scene. After everything was settled, the people around Fang Ping sighed in relief. "I didn't expect it to cost so many asset points." Suddenly, Fang Ping looked up and saw the students watching him. A wicked smile appeared on his face. "I didn't expect someone would come to gift me points." He slowly walked toward them, and they hurriedly stepped back. "Stop. We're not freshmen on the 4th floor." He smiled. "The principal didn't say we couldn't fight. If students from other floors are here, then they can stay." Finally, the freshman orientation for the new students ended. The students slowly left the training building, but all of them were in a sorry state. Fang Ping was also carrying Fu Changding out. "Man, you really got wrecked." Fu Changding suddenly shouted, "We've defeated thousands of people. Although we lost, it's still glorious." Fang Ping, helpless, said, "All right, just stay quiet. You've been beaten to a pulp, so don't talk." Fu Changding, still unsatisfied, muttered, "And you're fine, huh? Not a scratch on you." Fang Ping pretended to be modest. "Because I'm strong. A little king, no matter how powerful, is still a child." A voice filled with terrifying authority suddenly came from behind. Fang Ping and the other person froze. It was Huangjing, the headmaster of the Weapon Academy. A female advisor, who had been helping Huangjing, introduced the schedule. When Huangjing approached, all the freshmen quickly made way. Fang Ping looked after him. "This is the pressure of a grandmaster's level? It's terrifying. But one day, I will be stronger than him." Just then, Huangjing's voice came through the loudspeaker, asking the freshmen to go to the corresponding training field to choose their advisors. Fang Ping said, "Why hasn't anyone mentioned our study points?" Fu Changding replied, "Maybe the headmaster is too embarrassed to mention it." Before they could finish, a red-haired advisor came over. "The study points will be distributed later. After the division, the academy will tally the points for you. Such a small matter doesn't need a grandmaster like the headmaster to handle." Fu Changding quickly pressed Fang Ping's head down and said loudly, "Sorry, advisor, we were wrong." Fang Ping was confused. "What's going on?" Fu Changding explained, "This man is a 6th grade expert. Tang Feng is the best under the dean. Offending him is not a good idea. You performed well in the department division test this time." Tang Feng gave an expression of consolation. Fang Ping thought Tang Feng was praising him and smiled, raising his head. But the next moment, he felt uncomfortable. It turned out he was praising Fu Changding instead. Tang Feng, still offering consolation, said, "Despite being surrounded by so many students, you fought without retreat. You truly have the spirit of a martial artist." Fang Ping was speechless. He didn't retreat because he couldn't retreat. Is this advisor blind? After praising Fu Changding, Tang Feng turned to Fang Ping with a contemptuous expression and said, "I dislike dishonest students." Fang Ping struggled to contain his anger and ignored Fu Changding. After Tang Feng finished speaking, he turned and left, saying to Fu Changding, "When choosing your advisor, you can come straight to me." Fu Changding quickly consoled Fang Ping, telling him not to be angry. Tang Feng is famous for not sparing anyone. Fang Ping gritted his teeth and muttered, "I will definitely make this lie and regret it." The young man, reborn 10 years ago, successfully activated his system, becoming someone everyone wanted. Even the fierce female advisors were coveting. The freshman division test ended, and it was time to choose an advisor. Freshmen went to the training grounds, where each advisor's table had different requirements for recruitment. The tables listed various conditions: no limits on gender, a minimum of 2 trials, only 5 people recruited, blood vitality over 180 points for selection, and a preference for cute girls who loved swordsmanship. Fang Ping looked around, uncertain of who to choose. Each advisor excelled in different fields, so finding the best fit for himself was the key. Although many advisors required the students to be martial artists, with Fang Ping's 3-time Tokat achievements, no one would turn him away. He turned to Fu Changding and asked, "Have you decided which advisor you're choosing?" Fu Changding seemed hesitant. "You take your time thinking." Back then, Advisor Baekhyaki was elegant and graceful, so many people liked her. At this moment, Fang Ping looked in the direction of Wu Vyudi. Her appearance and name matched well. She was indeed a weapon. The selection requirements at her table were quite direct, even a custom order. Aren't these the top-performing students from the division test? Fang Ping thought helplessly. There was also an intern student, and this older sister was really strong. As Fang Ping was about to leave, Wu Hudi suddenly opened her eyes, which had been closed, and spoke to Fang Ping. "Come to me. I guarantee you will be safe at school." Fang Ping was surprised by her bold tone. "But is there danger in the school?" Wu Hudi responded, "You know Wang Jinyang, right?" Fang Ping wondered, "You think no one knows him?" Wu Hudi gave a faint smile and continued, "Last year, that guy came to the martial arts academy and injured many students from your level. With your connection to Wang Jinyang, do you think you can live through university life peacefully?" She went on, "You wouldn't want to face those upperclassmen who despise Wang Jinyang every day, would you?" Before Wu Hudi could finish speaking, Tang Feng walked over and slammed his hands on the table. "Students of the martial arts academy aren't so petty." Wu Hudi stared at Tang Feng and replied, "If they were just fellow townspeople, that would be fine. But Wang Jinyang is Fang Ping's mentor. Do you dare to guarantee that your students won't resent him?" The question stunned Tang Feng, who didn't know how to answer. Wu Hudi stood up and continued, "When martial artists of the same level fight and lose, it's a major grudge. As long as Wang Jinyang is undefeated, they won't let it go." She turned to Fang Ping and said, "If they bully you, tell me. Your teacher has a powerful shield, and even the strongest can't touch you." In that instant, Fang Ping was shocked. No wonder this older sister was so arrogant. Wu Hudi didn't care about Tang Feng's anger, and, while walking toward Fang Ping, said, "The tasks my students handle carry a lot of risk. I won't deny that, but once you choose martial arts, you must learn to compete for it." Wu Hudi patted Fang Ping on the shoulder and continued, "I've looked into your background, ordinary family, no martial artists. For you to enter the martial arts academy, you need to understand that with your conditions, it will be much harder to achieve anything in martial arts than others." She smiled. "But I'm different. I have shares in a medicine company, and you can take as many pills as you like." Fang Ping was astonished. "Take as many pills as I want." This method was truly impressive. Seeing Fang Ping's incredulous expression, Wu Wudi laughed and said, "Do you think I'm lying?" She casually took out 10 blood vitality pills and handed them to Fang Ping as a gift. The pills shimmered in her hand. Fang Ping thought to himself, "This older sister is really generous. She just gave me 10 blood vitality pills, worth millions. According to her, this would bring a lot of benefits, right? It would be foolish not to take advantage of it." Fang Ping eagerly accepted the pills. The system's notification sounded, and his asset value increased by 1,000,000. Fang Ping grinned. "Thank you, advisor. I'll follow you from now on." Wu Wudi didn't waste time talking, and immediately handed him a key to her dormitory. "You can come to me if you have any martial arts problems." Fang Ping remarked, "Definitely someone from the industry." Then, Tang Feng spoke up again, "You should take responsibility for your students." Wu Hudi's response was calm. "In the years I guided students, over half of them have been injured before graduating." Fang Ping suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Why didn't Tang Feng say this sooner? Was it too late to regret it now? Wu Hudi glanced at Tang Feng. "That's none of your business. I'll handle it." Just then, Zhao Xumai stepped forward and asked, "Could I choose you as my advisor?" Wu Hudi responded, "Of course, welcome to join." Fang Ping couldn't believe it. Tang Feng was right, and someone still dared to choose Wu Hudi. This woman was indeed formidable. Fu Changding came over and put his arm around Fang Ping, whispering, "Her real name isn't Wu Hudi, it's Yu Bongyu." Fu Changding continued, "Although her student casualty rate is quite high, Her strength is no less than Tang Feng's. Fang Ping appeared skeptical. Then why didn't you choose her? Fu Changding responded quickly. Because I want to learn weaponry, so I chose that teacher. Fang Ping laughed and asked, aren't you afraid the lion's path will cause trouble for you? Fu Changding stammered, afraid of what? Am I Fu Changding someone who's afraid? Besides, Jono, the top of our class, and Yang Suman, who ambushed you earlier, both chose him. Does he really care about someone as insignificant as me? Fang Ping asked, really? You must have prepared yourself for it, right? The advisor selection was over, and the two headed to the logistics department of Manhwa to prepare for academic points collection. Fang Ping asked, how many points do you think we can exchange? Fu Changding replied, I got beaten up and ended up like this, so if they don't give me a few more points, how could it match my looks? At the service desk for new students, Fu Changding approached first. Excuse me, can you check my academic points? In his mind, he imagined a suave and charming demeanor, but the reality was always harsh. The teacher at the window gave him a goosebumps-inducing stare and asked for his name and ID number. After hearing the points, Fu Changding couldn't believe it. What? I only got 45 points? There must be a mistake. Sir, if you have questions, go to the dean. This isn't something I handle, the teacher responded. Next, it was Fang Ping's turn. He stepped up and was told his reward was 152 points. The teacher was astonished, thinking, I've been working here for 3 years, but this is the first time I've seen a new student with so many points. Fu Changding's face turned pale. This is way higher than mine. Fang Ping smirked. Well, I'm way stronger than you. Fang Ping then asked, besides exchanging for medicine, do academic points have other uses? The teacher explained, a lot, from small things like food and rest to big ones like using special equipment or borrowing ethnic items. In Manhwa, there's almost nothing points can't solve. Academic points in cash can also be exchanged. 1 point equals 10,000 in cash. 30,000 can exchange for 1 point. Fu Changding felt dissatisfied. That's a bit too sneaky. The teacher put on a serious face. The school doesn't encourage students to use money for exchanging academic points, but some students have no choice. Without exchanging points, they can't even afford meals. That's why we provide an opportunity for the wealthy students like you. Fu Changding awkwardly said, don't say that, I wasn't planning to exchange. Fang Ping sighed, no matter how much money you have, you can't withstand this kind of business. Fang Ping opened the system and was surprised to find that he had already earned quite a bit of asset value. Including the blood energy pills from earlier, his total assets now amounted to over 4 million. He smiled. Next, we'll head to the resource exchange to prepare for some medicine. For new students, only partial exchange rights are granted. But for us, under level 3, it's enough. Looking at the exchange list, Fang Ping pondered. A first-grade internal organ guard pill cost 2 million in the market, but here it was only 60 points, which equals just 600,000. His eyes lit up. So, I can sell the medicine for profit and increase my asset value. Truly a genius move. Back in the dormitory, Fang Ping lay on his bed thinking, if it weren't for the system, I wouldn't be able to stand a chance against these martial artists. After 2 Tokat breakthroughs, martial artists focus on strengthening their bones, making them much tougher than me. No matter how strong I get, I'm still just a 3-time Tokat. He concluded, if I fight head-on, my bone strength is far weaker than theirs. Tomorrow, I need to head to Yobanyu's dorm to find her. I need to break through to first grade level quickly. This is the beginning of my experience transfer. The first semester will set a new record for me.